Join us this morning to help navigate and understand the context of the President's speech in marking the June 12th Democracy Day celebration is Mr. Ben Shemang. He is the former Director of News, Voice of Nigeria, and of course he's our go-to man when it comes to some of these talking points, as well as newspaper reviews, which will be done in just a moment. Mr. Ben, good morning. It's good to see you as always.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Great to be here.
I think you took yourself back to 1992, 1993 a moment ago, singing those songs. As someone who has lived through this experience, seeing June 12 now being commemorated, now being symbolized as a day that acknowledges Nigeria's battle for democracy, what does that mean? And do you think this alignment, really fits well?
Yeah, let me see. Nigeria on the move again, MKO is a man, something like that. Those were some of the campaign messages at that time, talking about June 12th. And I remember covering that election in Abeokuta. I was with an ever-Asian correspondent, Ngoke, and we covered that effectively. But I do remember someone telling me, a security guy, "Are you among those who have been sent here to waste your time?" I said, "I don't understand." He said, "You understand later." Now, was it that they knew the elections were going to be annulled? But thereafter, when the election was annulled, Lagos in particular was turned upside down. Burning of tires here and there. It was not easy going to cover, to report in our offices. I was then living in Ikeja to go to Ikoyi to go report news. I was also defense correspondent. I was crime and police correspondent. MKO at the point was declared wanted. You had to go get some briefing from police, and the military were all over the place. Nigeria was just not it. But there was a missing factor all the same. In trying to be on what we call on June 12 we stand, you could see that at the point a portion of Nigeria was rather being seen as real pro-democracy compared with some others. And you could see at the point some people saying, "Look, let me go back to my region where I'll be safe." Some will say, "Let me return to mine where I'll be safe." But good thing, Nigeria didn't break up. Some had predicted June 12 was going to be a kind of the point where Nigeria would break. Okay. But if you also look at even the choice of the candidates, when you had the Social Democratic Party, which IBB called a little to the left, almost inclined with socialism, and I see a little to the right, that's National Republican Convention, a bit to the right, the capitalist nature of it all. Now you had the candidates as MKO Abiola for SDP, the running mate was Kingibe, Babagana Kingibe. You had NRC, Bashir Tofa, then you had Sylvester Ugo, an Igbo guy. So, in other words, the balancing act when it comes to the map of Nigeria was a kind of in order. But what went on under the table, like we say, when you see people around the table, you don't know who is kicking the other under the table. Right.
Okay. Yeah. Just before we can go down this particular memory lane, we have a couple of packages for you this morning, just to shed light on a variety of some of the issues that we're going to identify in our conversation and our coverage today. Talking about politics, the evolution of political parties, talking about the history of June 12 and a lot more. So let's take a look at the first one, shaping Nigeria's journey back into democracy, and some of the developments around the political parties that played a key role in our electoral system since the return of democracy.
June 12 saga in Nigeria. The country was facing a tumultuous political landscape. The military regime led by General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida had annulled the presidential election held on June 12, 1993, which to many was regarded as free and fair. This action sparked widespread protest and unrest across the country, as many Nigerians demanded the restoration of democracy and the recognition of the election results, which had favored Chief Moshood Abiola, popularly known as MKO. The aftermath of the June 12 saga saw a period of political uncertainty and repression. General Sani Abacha seized power in a military coup and ruled with an iron fist, suppressing dissent and opposition. Chief MKO Abiola, the presumed winner of the annulled election, was arrested and detained by the military government. His incarceration symbolized the struggle for democracy and the fight against authoritarian rule in Nigeria. During this dark period, Nigeria faced international isolation and condemnation due to its human rights abuses and a lack of democratic governance. Economic sanctions were imposed, further exacerbating Nigeria's woes. The plight of political prisoners, including Chief MKO Abiola, garnered global attention, and calls for their release echoed around the world. Despite the repression, the spirit of democracy remained alive in Nigeria. Civil society organizations, human rights activists, and ordinary citizens continued to advocate for the restoration of democracy and the rule of law. The resilience of the Nigerian people in the face of adversity became a source of inspiration both domestically and internationally. The turning point came with the sudden death of General Sani Abacha in 1998, which paved the way for a transition to civilian rule. General Abdulsalami Abubakar assumed power and initiated a process of political reform, including the release of Chief MKO Abiola in the organization of new elections in the country. In 1999, Nigeria held its first democratic elections in nearly 16 years, ushering in a new era of civilian rule. The June 12 experience remains a defining moment in Nigeria's history, symbolizing the struggle for democracy and the resilience of the Nigerian people in the face of tyranny. It serves as a reminder of the importance of upholding democratic values and principles and the need to remain vigilant against any threat to democratic governance.
All right, that's our package chronicling, the journey to our current democratic experience, way back from that election in 1993. And that also alludes to some of the things that were said by our guest here in the studio. And he talked about his experience in the event leading to that election, which was adjudged one of the freest, if you like, and best election conducted by you could say it's the SR unit of elections in Nigeria. And Nigeria's history. It has its own imperfections, but the fact that it was generally, widely, domestically, internationally accepted as the freest and fairest election in our history. And you basically could even tell where the pendulum was swinging at the time, and the election essentially, just put a seal to what that outcome was. But the result of which we were never going to hear, or rather never came to the limelight until the eventual death of the winner of the election and all of the crises that followed. Mr. Ben, I'm sure you went through that tape, and drawing back from your experience. After that election, you were around the seat of power as a reporter or a correspondent at the time. What did it feel like? The tension following the days when everybody had expected that the result would be announced, and there was silence everywhere, and eventually all of the permutations that led to the annulments of that election and all that happened. Give us a sense of what the feelers were around Odan Barrack at the time, and of course around a couple of places across Nigeria?
Yeah, you see, for the military, the Babangida days, yes, the annulment was done. All they could do was to just rev the engine of intelligence to see where there would be any crisis, and of course reprisal would kind of emerge. But I want to say that I think the pro-democracy movements that time and the leadership, there was a failure in terms of trying to galvanize every Nigerian to see that this is a march towards democracy, a march forward for Nigeria to fare better, because some regions, I mean, in particular the Southwest, you could see that it was like they owned the democracy and not the entire Nigeria or Nigerians owning democracy.
Was there you know, the current issue with identity politics, was that an element because the adjudged winner is from the Southwest? Was that part of the motivation for?
But the person who annulled it also came from the North, and it therefore followed that some people were perceived to be, I mean, as a northerner with my own tribal, Sholio tribal marks here and there, it was easy for me to be identified as a northerner. But all the same, you could see that, like I was saying, the movers of the flag bearers of democracy, pro-democracy that time, ought to have a kind of conscientize every Nigerian to see that this annulment belongs to every Nigerian, bearing in mind that the overwhelming kind of voting and support that the SDP, Abiola got, was Nigerian, so to speak. But you could see that there were attacks. They tended to be a kind of segregated here and there, and some people at the point felt, look, why don't I return to the north where I'll be safe? Why don't I, as a southerner, return to the south where I'll be saved? And of course, along that line, Babangida stepped down. Then I had just gone to look for news in a police counseling house. When I returned, they said DG Yaya Abubakar. I was with Voice of Nigeria then. The DG sent for me. I went, said, come, they've been calling from Dodan Barracks looking for you. Did you commit anything? I searched myself. Sir, I committed nothing. They are looking for you in Dodan Barracks. He said, okay. I just decided to go with my recorders. I didn't know Abacha had rushed to State House here in Abuja and overthrew Shoneko. Then Haruna Idris of Eversian, he's a director of Northwestern Zone. He was also called then Mohammed Labo of NTA. Then we were there, they said, just wait here, we'll brief you. And thereafter, Abacha came in the evening. We just saw that we were recording a coup speech. And I remember the last sentence. Any attempt to test our will be decisively resisted. That was the last, if I can paraphrase it that way, that was the last of Abacha's speech. And I was surprised even before Abacha could come. You remember he was Secretary of Defense. He was the most senior of all ministers. I could see even some civilians who were pro-democracy people also coming to defense headquarters then to say that Abacha was the conscience of the nation. If you don't take action, so to speak, that Nigeria was going to be bloodier than Bosnia-Herzegovina put together, because there was a bloody war within that period. They said Nigeria should. So, in other words, sometimes when you see the military incurring into a civil kind of a rule, there's always the civilian aspect that will persuade them to do it.
You are saying they were beckoned upon to pretty much.
Truly, I mean, if we were to have records like we have today, I could show you speeches of people who will come distributing some speeches to us, persuading Abacha to intervene. And they said, you are the conscience of the nation. I don't want to call a name now, but I do know that that person is alive today. And when I was listening to the President Bola Tinubu's speech, he paid glowing tribute and made mention of that pro-democracy activist who indeed ensured that Abacha came to power. And when Abacha brought in what you call the ministerial list, I remember some people said, no, this one will not take, this one will not take. They are men of conscience. Man, I said, wait, these are people we've been reporting, trying to woo Abacha. Let's see if they will make up the cabinet. And they came to be. I said, I told you. And it came to be. I know. So
really one of the most intriguing history for me, because I remember reading so much about it in school, learning a lot more about the history of the campaigns before IBB set up the elections, the annulment, what came after, the whole drama around it, and what happened 5 years later with two of the key players there being MKO Abiola of blessed memory, as well as General Sani Abacha also. Give me a sense of what the conversations were like, especially beyond just the protests. How do we get back to civilian rule? Because that was the game. That was the end game. Because Nigeria has been blacklisted internationally. The sanctions were raining down upon us because of the annulment and what happened subsequently. What was it like, living in that time, and were Nigerians really that attached to the June 12th movement and also to the struggle to return back to democracy?
Honestly, Nigerians wanted democracy, no doubt about it. And the campaign strategy that time, you could see all these town hall movements here and there, not just going for rallies. You also have to meet with professional bodies here and there. I remember in one of the consultations in the National Theatre, MKO Abiola was there, and Professor Wole Soyinka asked a question. So, what will you do with this 5 political parties that are sucking government funds? What will you do with them? Will you annul them, cancel them, and let there be proper? And MKO, he was a man of proverbs. He said, my Nobel laureate, thank you for that question. Now, everybody look at your palm. You see all sorts of designs there. Can you see them? Now, you can't say you are not happy with the design in your palm and you cut off your hand. If I tell the soldiers now that I will cancel all these political parties, supposing there will be no elections.
Creation of the military.
Exactly.
Right.
Supposing there will be no election. So my Nobel laureate, thank you, I won't go into that one. I am trying to paraphrase him again. And I think that I have the real recording of the exact words in my box today as we are talking. So that time, it was good for a journalist trying to stitch stories together and a kind of trying to also see, by way of what you call social responsibility. Will your stories that are being churned out be a kind of those that will disengage, dismember the country? Or, of course, you're going to simply have a united Nigeria via this social responsibility theory? Will you kind of be an agenda setter, a kind of trying to ensure that Nigeria moves forward? Will you be one that will say, look, yes, the military, go back to your barracks and simply allow the civilians to take charge? But my disappointment then was when we saw those who were also carrying leaflets, persuading the military to do something implied that, look, the
Take
civilian
over.
setup should go. But we were later to learn that the game plan was they thought if Abacha took over, then MKO will be given over, will have the chance to rule. But it never turned out to be. And even when Abacha was there, you will see that those who were first to go there, pay homage to him, started from the traditional rulers from the southwestern part of the country. If you were to play tape video tapes of NTA, you see them. Everybody will come and I say, you've done noble in all of this. So it was a kind of an encouragement to Abacha, and before you knew it, the man stabilized, and today they said, oh, he turned out to be what he ought not to be for Nigerian history.
All right. Coming into the president's speech this morning, he talked about a number of things beyond paying tribute to those, to a number of those who were very active in the struggle for the return of democracy. There are some names, however, that featured there that some of us were nodding our heads and shaking our heads in disbelief. But that's a story for another day. But he talks about the need to continue to nurture this democracy. He talked about how it is not an end, in itself, and how we all need to continue to support the government of the day, to ensure that it delivers on the dividends of democracy, among several other things he said. And he talked about being grateful to have the responsibility to, play his own part in moving this democracy forward. Do you think that, in line with what the president has said, that with the actions that we have seen in the last 1 year, they understand what they really need to do to move this democracy forward?
Yeah, let me start by saying I thank the president for one thing. This is the speech for the first time that glowing tributes have been paid to the journalism profession in terms of fighting for freedom. You remember before the independence, journalists were also, a kind of a pin. Let me stop it there. A pin on the colonial masters that could pinch them here and there. You remember Ademo Alakija, Habad Macaulay, Nnamdi Azikiwe, West African Pilot, Tribune. You look at the New Nigerian it was not called New Nigerian. That it was something citizen. I've forgotten. So that phase passed. Then the June 12th thing, you could see that he paid glowing tribute to the journalism profession. But the only thing is that when June 12 was on, the only private media house was Ray Power, the only radio station that was independent. Every other thing was owned by government. And we are also thinking that the list that I listened to, I didn't see anybody being mentioned in the government media organizations. That's an omission that is seriously, because we kept the struggle in terms of broadcasting. They should also pay tribute to some of us. But having said so, yes,
it's difficult to establish, given that the government media houses were largely seen as governments.
But I am telling you, there was no broadcast that you cannot link to the. They'll call us for media briefing. They needed the international community to listen to us via Voice of Nigeria. They needed to galvanize Nigerians via Radio Nigeria. Because if you look at radio, for example, you don't need to be literate to listen to a radio, provided it's done in a language you understand. But back to the B part of the question, in terms of the dividends of this struggle, he said he's number one beneficiary. Now that he's number one beneficiary, we therefore do not want a situation where Nigerians will always begin to think back. Remember when Goodluck Jonathan went for an event, every mention of Jonathan got an ovation. Now, in other words, Nigerians are saying, why not the past? Now we had Buhari. Are we also saying that Buhari will be better than Tinubu? In other words, when we talk of dividends of democracy, we should be looking at a current government that will say, I am doing this, and we see it. And we are not talking of government that will say, I will be doing or I shall be doing. No, we shouldn't be talking of government of the future. We should be talking of delivering dividends of democracy, because the president said he's the direct beneficiary. And be citizen number one right now, so we need water as, of course, a part of what you should give us. We need this electricity as part of what we should be giving us. How many people actually viewed or saw or listened to the broadcast today because there is no electricity? We also need security. In terms of security, if we are not secured, Mr. President, we can't be talking of farming. And this is rainy season. Where are the where are our security in our farmlands? I want to tell you, Abdullahi, I want to tell you, Sunday Nigerians listening to us, Check and see the way government it has virtually washed off its hands in terms of fertilizer supply.
Yeah,
and when you don't have fertilizer, I mean, it's just clear. I won't say what is likely to happen.
So when the president in his speech said, as president of the nation, I am morally and constitutionally bound to preserve this precious form of governance, vowing to do his utmost best to protect our rights, freedoms and liberties as citizens of Nigeria. Are you saying that this is, emblematic of what politicians always do? There's a lot of talking, but very little doings in terms of delivering the dividends of democracy, because we are where we are today largely because of the underperformance of the political class over the past 25 years, as far as this current democratic dispensation is concerned.
Now, you see...
Do you think the president's speech, is any different from anything that we've heard in the past about commitments to do right by Nigerians?
I have always spoken about a word I created. When people talk of AHMED, the thing you hear, I talk of IMAC. Can I see it? So if the president is saying he's morally bound to do it, constitutionally bound to do it, yes, he has that by way of saying. But when we want to plot it on the ground, what is going to happen? Now, let us look at that morally bound via the swearing in by the holy books. Let us have our local governments have their financial autonomy, and many of the problems, insecurity, right from the grassroots will be overcome. Let us begin to have what you call proper neighborliness. Let us begin to have good neighbors. Let us begin to have sound education. But a situation where, again, you see some people talking about employment or appointments schemed to favor some regions, some places, some areas, it does not augur well for the morals and the constitution of Nigeria, where he swore to do justice to all manner of people, irrespective of tribe, religion, where they come from, creed, and all that stuff. So, are we getting all of that? And a situation where up to now we are seeing the days of Buhari. Well, he is gone. Tinubu is in charge today. Where Buhari failed for every year to recruit 10,000 policemen to take charge of our communities. We are now seeing military being deployed to do what police ordinarily should be doing. If by the Nigerian constitution we are told that when it is too much for the police, the military could be called in to assist when it comes to assisting civilian powers. You deploy to assist. And that is why we're talking of insurgency, insurrection, the military will have to be there. But there has to be a time limit as to when the military will be there. They are supposed to strike, retreat, and the police will take over because they have superior power. But today we are seeing the military doing roadblock, doing stop and search. That is not supposed to be. So I think that the president should look at that seriously and we move on positively.
Interesting conversations there coming from Mr. Ben Sherman. But before we'll move on to what we have lined up next, on a general, what do you make of the president's speech this morning? Were there expectations that speech met for you? What's your general impression, rather?
Honestly, when I was waiting, I kept on waiting, and I saw that the president is not in the mannerism of Babangida of long speeches.
But this one lasted 10 minutes. It was quite long.
Well, you see, when it reached 10 minutes, thereafter, I started saying, I'm waiting for some things. More so, I saw some clues in some newspapers. There could be reshuffling of cabinets. There could be some groundbreaking announcements when it comes to the economy, when it comes to running this country.
So you're expecting something more grand?
Honestly,
what was said?
See, I'm passionate about agriculture. I'm passionate about engaging the youth. I thought there would be something. And I tell you, it's not late. That we should, this rainy season, the rains are here. There's still hunger. There are some beans, there are some crops that could be harvested twice in a farming season. We just leave all of that. Today we're talking I hope we're not going to massive importation again, because if the pressure is too much, there's hunger. You see that we just help other countries' economies when indeed we can farm. What is it when people are now saying, can we begin to negotiate with farmers and herders? Let us see what is happening. I mean, if this is a way out, why not? And if we are saying that Boko Haram and insurgency of these clashes that are taking place, they are all about Nigerian citizens fighting against Nigerian citizens. So can we begin to look at a way out? Where are the people that the government can negotiate with? Where are the leaders of various warring or complaining groups? Where are their leadership? Can a body be set up so that we'll begin to talk of negotiating with people, instead of saying, oh, we should be talking of how we're going to align and realign with some political parties in order to win future elections. We should be talking of first the welfare of Nigerians, because when we're talking of the fundamental and general objective of government is to give us security, give us food, give us education, encourage, in fact, they said even cross-marital kind of marriages. Let the Borno man go and marry in Yoruba land. Let the Yoruba land go marry in Igbo land. Let there be a unity. And if you ask me, have you done so in my house? Come to my house and see how many people have gone to Yoruba kingdom. Come to my house and see how many people from Igbo land, Edo Delta. My daughter, by the way, is married in Edo State. And I'm feeling great about it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ben Shaman, for preaching that oneness and giving us what looks like a prescription, for an ideal democracy.
It's very much an open secret for a very long time. Right.
Whether or not we practice this with sincerity or purpose is a different thing. I want to thank you very much for helping us start the day by giving us that bird-eye view to what happened around Dodan Barracks in the events that led to the annulment of the 1993 election. As we take further dive into all of the issues, leading into this democracy and up to this point with the current administration of President Ahmed Tinubu, we would take a quick breather. When we return, the show continues with another guest. You don't want to miss it. Thank you very much.